What's going on, CDL fans? Today we're going to be ranking players for Major 2. So this is Major 2 qualifiers and Major 2. It's not a whole season ranking. This is strictly for second split of this season. As you can see the chat underneath me, we are live right now on YouTube. So if you want to hang out in future lives, definitely make sure you sub to the channel. But with all that being said, let's hop right into the list. I guess we could just go straight in order. So starting off with the Atlanta FAZE boys. I didn't do any preparation for this, so I didn't have any pre-ideas of where I wanted to put people. I'm probably going to go with BZ S tier for this split. I think BZ had a much better stage 2 than he did stage 1. I think he improved a ton, and obviously FAZE won the major. He had a lot of pop-off moments on land, so I see you guys agreeing with me in chat. I definitely think BZ is S tier. Then we come into Cellium. Probably we'll go Cellium Z tier. Maybe I'll move Cell down to S. I'm going to adjust as I go. Like I said, I didn't say this in the beginning of the video, but adding this in here, I do want to make this a bit of a bell curve where the middle tiers, like the A, B tier, kind of has more players, and then it's sort of, you know, the top and the bottom have less. So I want to focus on really looking at the tiers this time around. Or no, we're not going to do it in tier order. It's just too difficult to do tier order, and it gets too complicated. It takes too long. So we're just gonna, it's not gonna be left to right order. They're just gonna be tiers. But I do think Draza's S tier. Draza had an incredible stage 2 in my opinion. He was probably better than a BZ in my opinion over the course of stage 2. I mean, if you saw the breaking point cards, he was a 99 overall. I'm not saying that that's like determining my list, but I definitely think Draza had a bit of an underrated stage because people like to just hate on him. Yeah, I would say on the overall season, Draza wouldn't be S tier, but since we're doing just stage 2, I'm putting him in the S tier. Simp is Z tier, obviously. Simp is my second best player in the game. I still think Scrap is the best player in the game, although I'd probably have Simp as like the MVP front runner. That might get confusing, but I do think that Simp and Scrap are the two best players in the game for sure. I see a lot of people saying Draw's A tier. I'm sure we all know Simp is going to be Z tier. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. Then we go into Boston Breach. LAG beat this, guys. Yeah, dude, LAG beat this team, chat. LAG beat this. ASIM, I'd probably go B tier. I think you could argue C tier for ASIM. I mean, the entirety of Boston was disappointing. I know with him getting dropped, people are really talking about him a lot. People are saying the flank is like over-gassing him to try and get him on teams and stuff like that. Personally, for me, watching the matches, even though ASIM's stats don't look crazy, I thought ASIM looked really impactful on the map and was doing good things for Boston. He did really struggle in Search and Destroy, though. But at the major, he was also their best player. But then again, they only played, what, 2 series or 1 series? So not really much you can say there. I'm going to give ASIM B tier for now. Maybe we move him down, but I'm going to keep him in B. Priesta is probably C tier. Honestly, the other Boston guys are probably... The Boston guys are interesting because they all kind of sat around the same stats. Like, if you look at Breaking Point's website, everybody on Boston pretty much had like a 1 KD. ASIM actually had the lowest KD on the team at like a 0.93, a 0.94. I don't know. I kind of like... It feels weird having ASIM a whole tier above his team. Any of these guys were the worst players in the league. I know their team played bad, but I don't think individually any of them were on the level of some of the other players we're going to get into. But let's just keep it moving, and we'll adjust as we go, like I said. But let's move on to the Royal Ravens. For Clayster, I'm going to put him in the B tier. I think Clay had a bad online stage, but he turned up on LAN, and LAN obviously matters a little bit more. And I think for that reason, he's sort of... I'm going to put him in the B tier. I think Clay is deserving of that. Fellow, I'm going to put Fellow in the C tier. Fellow could be in the D tier, but like I said, on LAN, Fellow also turned up, and that gives him a little bit of a bump in my opinion. Both of these guys, Clayster and Fellow, were probably D tier players online leading up to the event, but they both turned up on LAN. So I'm going to give them a little bit of that respect and kind of bump them up, maybe 1 tier, whatever. Gwyn is going to be A tier. Gwyn is just that guy on this team. He is the best player on the team for sure. I might move Clay down to C as well. We'll see. We'll see as we keep going, like I say. But I think Gwyn is definitely A tier. He's the best player on this team for sure. Tej, I'm going to put Tej in the B tier. I think Tej has been solid. He hasn't been anything crazy. He hasn't really had any like crazy pop-off moments. He also hasn't really had like the search and destroy prowess we've grown to expect from Tej. I think Tej has been solid this season. I think Tej has been very, very solid this season. Adam Assault, I know they did good on LAN. I'm putting him D tier. I feel like this guy is one of the bottom players in the league. I mean, no disrespect to Assault. No disrespect to any of these players. At the end of the day, these guys are all pros. They're all way better than I am. So just so people understand that, I'm gonna say Assault is definitely D tier. Diamond Con, probably B tier this stage. He had a much better stage 1 in my opinion. I don't think DC was nearly as good this stage, but I still think he was like a very solid, respectable player this stage. He did his thing. You know, he did his thing. It wasn't as good as stage 1, but he still was good. Estriel, I'm putting him in the A tier. I think Estriel was incredible this stage, honestly. The jump I feel like he made from stage 1 to stage 2 is extremely noticeable, and I think he just was really, really good. Fame, he's going to be C tier. I don't think Fame is D tier. I also think like Fame is the kind of guy who, like, I feel like he has his moments, especially in Search and Destroy, where he looks really, really good. But over the course of the entire stage, I feel like he was just kind of like average. You know what I mean? Like maybe slightly below average, but over the course of the entire stage, and honestly the whole season, Fame's just kind of been like he's just been there, you know what I mean? Like people haven't really thought too much of Fame or too little of him, I would say. Then we move to my LA Thieves. We're gonna put Cammy and Joe Deceives down to the bottom. Oh lord, time to do my LA guys. Afro, I mean, he's gonna be D tier. Obviously he got dropped. He just hasn't been good. I think Afro had his moments, similar like what I was just saying about Fame. Like Afro has his moments or his maps where he looks really, really good. And maybe you could argue him being C tier, but he doesn't put up damage. I feel like he doesn't shoot back sometimes. And like, I don't know, dude. I expected more out of Afro. I don't want to say I expect so much. I expected more out of Afro. He doesn't hold his irons. Exactly what you just said, Slayer. Sometimes he's just not holding his irons. I think he's going to be good in challengers and he'll find himself back in the league. Dan Ghosty, I'm going to go A tier. Maybe you could argue S tier for Dan Ghosty as well. And like I said, at the end, we'll kind of review and see if I want to move anything. Ghosty's been our best player. It's not a question. I think he's been really, really good. He's been doing his thing. This guy is hopefully going to be sticking around with LAT for a while. So I'm excited to hopefully keep him on the Thieves for a while going forwards. Then we move into the new additions, Kremp and Nasty. And these guys are a little bit hard to rank because I feel like they should probably be in the same tier. They both had series where they played really well. They both had series where they didn't play well. You know, Nasty's been doing damage the entire time. Kremp has definitely been a little up and down. I probably lean C tier, but I feel like maybe you could argue B tier for these guys. But I probably lean them more C than B. I mean, maybe you could say Nasty could be B, because like I said, he's been really putting in damage. Even when he's not getting kills, like he'll have like a 0.8, a 0.85, but he'll have the most damage on the team. So you might be able to argue Nasty, but I think for now, I'm going to stick them both in the C tier. But these are definitely players that have the potential to be higher on this list. Then we get into Dylan Attach. Dude, Attach is tough. He might be Z tier, but also I feel like Z tier can't have too many players, so he also could be A tier. I mean S tier. Attach is definitely in one of these top 2 tiers. I think Attach has been one of the best, probably 5 players in the game and Major 2, in my opinion. If you guys watched the Around the CDL podcast from last night, it's also up on the channel if you want to watch that. I said my top 5 players right now were Scrap, Simp, Hydra, Stellium, and Attach in that order. I'm gonna go Attach S for now. But there could be a world where I maybe move him up or I move Stellium down, because I really think Attach has been crazy. Geo, I would say, is A tier. Oh, dude, Geo's been really good. I think Geo for sure is A tier. He's been. I think Geo is a top 3 rookie in my opinion. I think the rookie race is hard. I think there's 4 rookies right now. I think it's Gwyn, Linz, Estriel, and Geo. Linz has kind of taken a bit of a step back, whereas Estriel and Geo have really stepped up. That's a close race, though, for Rookie of the Year at this point. I'd probably lean Gwyn leading the way right now, but it's definitely a close race for these guys for Rookie of the Year. Nero, I'm going to go A tier as well. Nero, he had some boneheaded plays on land. He obviously had some boneheaded plays on land, but Nero was incredible. If you go on Breaking Point and look at his stats, Nero had an amazing split. He was like top 5 in some KD categories too, which is crazy for a fast-paced SMG player. Nero's been him, bro. Nero has been him. Standy also, we can move him down. Purge is probably C tier. You might be able to argue B tier just because of how much better he's looked, considering he was like bottom D tier last time. But I'm gonna say Purge. Obviously, the slaying and the KD and stuff isn't there, but the plays he makes on the map, you could argue B for him, but for now, we're going to put him in C, and we'll kind of readjust as we go. For the Miami Heretics, we'll move Journey down. Dude, for Miami, it's tough because, I mean, Miami just had a rough one. Eric Boom, he's D tier. He hasn't really had the greatest start to his rookie year. We'll see what ends up happening with this team. They've been trialing Real today, apparently. I think I'd probably go D. I'd say Lucky and Vickle are probably C, and Metals is probably D. I think both of these guys, Lucky and Vickle, sort of like have their moments on this team where they play really well. You could obviously argue these guys moving down. Dude, I probably would keep these guys in the same tier. I think Lucky might have been a little bit better this split, but you could argue them all being D tier just considering how bad the team is played. But I also want to look more at like how the individual is playing for a player tier list and not necessarily the team. I know there's only 4 players on a team, so it's like how they have a big impact on the team's performance, obviously. But then we get to Lamar. And Lamar is probably, I'm going to put Lamar in the B tier, bro. I think he's been very solid. I think he's, Lamar has his moments. He really, dude, Lamar is a player that you could almost always bet on to do really well in a game 3 or a game 4 when his team is about to get eliminated. If you notice, Rocker go game 5 all the time, and if you go look at game 3s and game 4s, Lamar always puts up insane stats. I don't know what I mean, he's the Iceman for a reason. This guy just turns up when his team needs it most, so major shout out to Lamar. For Lins, he's probably also B tier this split, honestly. Lins could maybe even be C tier. I really don't think Lins has been that good for the most part this split. B or C, I'm kind of not sure exactly, because I don't know. I feel like Lins has been like probably better than ASIM. You know what I mean? And we have ASIM in the B tier. I feel like over the course of the stage, he's probably been better than Clayster, but he has not been nearly as good as he was at Major 1, obviously. Awakening is going to be D. I don't think there's much to argue with that. And I'd probably put Vivid C, honestly. I don't think Vivid was that bad. I was a little bit surprised he got dropped. I thought like after Awakening, he was the next one to obviously be dropped. But I don't think Vivid was really that bad. Vivid's just a guy who's like, he's kind of like, he plays that role like Nero does, where when he's on point, he looks amazing, like top 5, top 10 caliber type of player. And when he's not on point, he just gets absolutely fried. So it wasn't his split. He obviously is going down the challengers now, but I'm going to put him down in the C tier. Now we move to the New York subliners. Hydra, I mean, Z tier without a doubt. I think Hydra is one of the best players in the game by far. This guy had an insane major, an insane split. Major shout out to Hydra and New York. Obviously, Ordnance Gloves got GA'd, so we won't be seeing those nade spots like we saw, or at least to the extent we saw them. But I think Hydra has been a top 3 player in the recent weeks and the recent months, so he deserves Z tier. Kismet, I'm going to go A tier. I think Kiz had a really good online. He wasn't as good on land. He was great in search and destroy this split for sure. But Kiz, I think, just had a really good overall. He was just really, really good. I mean, just considering how good this New York team is, like obviously their players are going to be kind of up a little bit on the tier list. For Sib, I'd probably go A tier as well for Sib. You guys saying C? Really? Am I crazy for thinking Sib was that good? I thought Sib was good this stage. Am I faded? You guys are saying Sib didn't do anything. So let's see. We'll look Major 2. Sib had a 1.06, 76 Slayer rating. So he had a 1.14 in Hardpoint. He was bad in Search. But a 1.06. Yeah, no. Sib was... I'm putting Sib in A tier, chat. And then Skies. Sky is probably A tier as well. I think these guys just as a whole... I mean, if you look at the overall stats for this team... They all do their thing, but Hydra is obviously the standout player. New York, top 3 team at the major. You're going to have players high up on the tier list. It makes a lot of sense. Then we move into Seattle Surge. We'll move Illy down since he didn't play. Dude, Seattle's hard to rate. I mean, Arcides and Brezzy are going to be D tier. I don't think there's much else that needs to be said about them. NSL wanted to pack a punch, but instead they got a teddy bear from the mystery box. That's crazy, Slayer. That's crazy. But yeah, Seattle Surge. I mean, Arcides, Brezzy did not really play very well. HAVOK, I thought HAVOK was pretty decent this stage. B or C tier. I'll put him C for now. Abuza, dude, Abuza might also be in the D tier this stage. I didn't think he was that good either. I do think HAVOK was their best player. I think he was picking up the pace when his teammates weren't. And I know people are like, well, then maybe he should slow down, or maybe he should like whatever. Like, no, your team needs to pick up the pace. If you look at the pacing of these top teams, they're not playing slow. They usually have one AR that is slow, like your Insights, like your Celiums, right? Like your Dashies, the AR that is going to play a slower role. But you should not have 3 players playing slow when 1 player playing super fast. Like, you got to speed up to match HAVOK's pace. But that's how you have map control. That's how you make impact on the map. So that's kind of what I think for Seattle. Obviously, they're making changes, or they're making a change. But we'll see. Then we come into the Toronto Ultra. Well, first, let me get this out of the way. Scrap is obviously Z tier. I think Scrappy's the best player in the game right now. I don't think that's a surprise, for sure. But if you look at the stats for this team, Insight and Envoy struggled, bro. Insight and Envoy struggled, and Search and Destroy, this whole team was god-awful, which is crazy because they went on like a 12-map Search and Destroy win streak or whatever at Major 1. I think Kleenex is probably A-ish tier, if I had to say. A, yeah, I'd probably go A tier, and then I honestly would probably go B tier for these other two. Obviously, Toronto is still a great team. These guys still make plays, even if their KD doesn't look good. But, I mean, Scrap kind of carried them this split. I'm not going to lie to you. Scrap's numbers, I mean, if you just look solely at, like, the Slayer rating, like, his Slayer rating was so much higher. His respawn KD was so much higher. Like, Scrap was, like, he was making the plays. He puts up the most damage in almost every single category. Is Ultra the worst of the top 4? Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I don't think that's a surprise. And then, chat, we're down to our last team. It is OPTIC Texas. And let's see here. I would say for OPTIC Texas, Shotzi's S tier. I think Shotzi had an incredible stage. If he played better on LAN, I really think Shotzi could be a Z tier player. But I think Shotzi is just, he was really good. I mean, I know people are going to say like, oh, it was online, or oh, he doesn't do it against the best teams. Shotzi was really, really good. I also think Kenny, S tier. I think Kenny on LAN was incredible. He was really, really good on LAN. He was really, really good. I mean, we can look at OPTIC stats for the sake of it, just so people can kind of get a picture of it. I mean, if you look at OPTIC stats, bro, their KDs are all super similar. Their numbers just across the board were very, very similar, which I do think goes to show you how balanced they are as a team and how much their teamwork is kind of impacting, which I think is pretty cool. I would say probably Dashy and Pred are A tier in my opinion. Wait, what just happened there? I'd say Dashy and Pred are probably A tier. Pred was not that good this split. I see people saying S, I see people saying Z, and we get to your tier list, you could do what you want, but Pred really was not nearly as good. Like I always say, KD does not mean everything, right? The stats does not tell the whole story. I know we know this, but if you look at these stats, Pred had the 3rd biggest drop-off in terms of KD from Major 1 to Major 2. If I could zoom in, that'd be great. Look at his, he dropped from a 1.17 to a 1.03 from Major 1 to Major 2. Now, like I said, this isn't everything. KD isn't everything. He's not washed, obviously. They went from 3rd to 2nd. You can't really knock it too much. These guys are all really great players. All of these guys could be Z tier players on OPTIC. The A tier might be a little bit thick. But I don't know. Overall, I feel like this list is pretty good. You could argue Attach coming up, but the Z tier being bigger than the S tier doesn't make any sense. You could also argue Celium coming down, and just having these 3 as the Z. Dude, I'm gonna do it, chat. I'm having these 3 as the sole Z tier. I think these 3 are my 3 best players in the league right now. I'm gonna move Celium down. There's no disrespect to Cell. I mean, he's still in the S tier, right? This is still your top. This is still your top 9 players in the league according to my tier. So. I think this is a pretty solid tier list, chat. I think this is a pretty solid tier list. You guys can let me know what you think, right? You can let me know if this is a W or an L, if there's anyone you really think that should be moved. And for the people on YouTube, let me know in the comments what you think about this list. I think overall it's pretty solid. But yeah, chat, if you like this YouTube video, make sure to drop a like and sub to the channel for more CDL content. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.